She told me she was moving in with her male best friend like it was nothing. So I quietly flipped the script, walked away, and left her begging when her whole plan fell apart. There's a kind of silence that weighs heavier than shouts, the sort that creeps in when you realize the person you love has emotionally checked out of the relationship, even if they're still right in front of you. For me, that heavy silence hit on an ordinary Tuesday night. Emily and I were having dinner at our kitchen table when she put down her fork and, with an air of nonchalance, told me about her decision to move into a downtown condo with her friend Tyler. It was all about practicality, closer to work and a better deal on rent, plus she claimed it'd be fun. There was no softening the blow, just a statement of fact dropped like an unwanted bill. At first, I thought I misheard her. I waited for a follow-up, maybe a nervous laugh or a reassurance that she was joking, but none came. She simply picked up her fork and went back to eating. It wasn't a suggestion or even a question. It was a decision she had already made without consulting me, laid out as though it couldn't be questioned. The words lingered in the air as I tried to wrap my head around it. My girlfriend of 5 years, who I thought I'd marry one day, was telling me she was moving in with another guy. She must have sensed the weight of my silence because she quickly added, "It's just about finance. I'll save a ton sharing rent with him, and it's closer to downtown, so I won't be spending as much on gas. I've already checked out the place. It's nice." I leaned back in my chair, my appetite gone. The irony hit me hard. For the past 3 years, I'd been covering most of our costs, rent, utilities, even her car insurance, while she convinced me it was just temporary so she could save for grad school. I bought into the idea that this was an investment in our future because that's what couples do. We were supposed to be a team. But as I sat there listening to her talk so casually about moving in with Tyler, it dawned on me that she didn't view it that way at all. She didn't ask for my opinion. She didn't care how it made me feel. She didn't even acknowledge what it meant for us. All I could hear in her words was the unspoken truth. She had already left our relationship in her mind. I watched her face while she shared her practical plans, her excitement barely hidden. There was no sign of guilt. If anything, she seemed relieved, as if this was her way of breaking free without needing to actually call it a breakup. In that moment, I felt something shift inside me. 5 years of shared memories, holidays, lazy Sundays, late-night talks about our future, began to feel like they belonged to a different version of Emily, one that clearly no longer existed. I didn't say much that night. I nodded occasionally, offering a few non-committal sounds, but I didn't argue or plead with her to reconsider. I just let the silence speak for itself while she got to think she'd done nothing wrong. Little did she know, the moment she dropped that news, everything changed. I wasn't about to fight for someone who had already decided I wasn't worth the effort. Tyler, her friend, always rubbed me the wrong way. He was never subtle about how he hovered on the edges of our relationship. Whenever we went out, he was the guy buying shots for every girl at the bar, leaning in too close for comfort in photos and laughing a bit too loudly. Emily always defended him, saying he was harmless, but deep down, I suspected he was waiting for the right moment to make a move. That night at the table, when she said she was moving in with him, all those past red flags suddenly connected. I kept my expression calm while alarms were blaring in my head. I expected to feel anger, jealousy, or desperation, but instead, I felt clarity. She was sitting there waiting for me to erupt, for me to play the jealous boyfriend so she could paint me as controlling. But I wasn't about to follow her script. I looked her in the eye, kept my voice steady, and said, "That actually works out perfectly." Her fork halted mid-air. "What? That works out perfectly?" I repeated, a slight smile playing at my lips. She blinked, clearly confused. She had expected a confrontation, maybe even a tearful argument about loyalty. Instead, she got my calm agreement, which threw her off more than any fight could. The rest of dinner felt awkward. Emily stole glances at me, waiting for me to crack, but I didn't. I asked her about her day, made small talk, and complimented her cooking, acting as if everything was normal. But inside, I was plotting my next steps. Love only thrives when both partners share the burden, and after her announcement, I realized I had been carrying most of it for years. Her move with Tyler wasn't just about finances. It was about her desire for freedom. She thought she had found a clever way to escape our life without being the villain. But I wasn't going to allow that. I didn't tell her my thoughts, of course. I left her under the impression that she had won this round. The next morning, Emily left for work as if it were any other day, kissing me goodbye. I sat at the same kitchen table where she'd made her casual announcement, pulled out my laptop, and examined our finances closely for the first time in ages. It was all there in black and white. I realized I was funding practically every part of our so-called shared life. Rent, utilities, the car insurance, all of it had been paid from my account. By the end of my calculations, I discovered I was covering about 85% of everything. 85. And the one benefiting from that was the same person who had just declared she was moving in with another man for money reasons. The irony didn't escape me. I spent the rest of the day quietly setting things in motion. I contacted our landlord to ask about giving notice since we were nearing the end of our lease. With some maneuvering, I figured I could time it perfectly so I wouldn't be locked into another year. The landlord was understanding, and with a simple phone call, I gave notice. No drama, just paperwork. Then I carefully went through every receipt, bill, and purchase tied to my name over our years together, organizing them into folders to document exactly what I had paid for. This wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity. I wanted to ensure there would be no confusion when it came time to divide our things. 2 days later, Emily came home to find me cooking dinner. She looked tired, likely expecting me to bring up her plans again. Instead, I poured her a glass of wine and waited until she sat down. That's when I casually mentioned I'd given notice to the landlord. "We have to be out by the end of the month," I said, keeping my tone steady. Her fork clattered to the plate. "What? Why would you do that?" I remained calm and explained, "I accepted an opportunity in another city. It doesn't make sense for me to renew the lease here." Her face drained of color. "But where am I supposed to stay until Tyler and I move in? The condo isn't even ready yet." I let the silence linger before I delivered my punchline softly. "That's the beauty of your plan. You won't need me to cover anything anymore." She opened her mouth, then closed it. For once, she had no quick explanation or easy excuse. The certainty she had carried just days before faded, replaced with uncertainty she couldn't mask. In that moment, I realized it wasn't about me chasing her down or punishing her. It was about regaining balance. She had built her newfound freedom on the foundation I had provided, and once I stepped out from under it, the cracks began to show. I didn't gloat, didn't argue. I simply continued as I had at dinner that night, calm and steady. Deep down, I knew she thought she had made the first move, not realizing that I had flipped the board already. After I gave notice, the following days were unexpectedly calm for me, but I could see Emily starting to unravel. While she busied herself texting Tyler about her new plans, I focused on untangling our shared life. I laid out proof of all the years I'd covered rent, utilities, furniture, and appliances. It was indisputable. When it came time to divide our belongings, I laid everything out clearly. This was mine, that was paid for with my card. She ended up with her clothes, some books, and the Instagram-worthy couch she had insisted we buy last year. I didn't even argue. She could keep it. But the car was another story. Emily had been driving a vehicle that was fully in my name, insurance, payments, everything tied back to me. At the time, it hadn't seemed like a big deal because we were a team, or so I thought. But teams don't make unilateral decisions about moving in with another person. So while she assumed she could keep driving it, I quietly listed it for sale. Within a week, it was gone, and I used the money to pay off some lingering debts. When she came home to find the car missing, her face turned pale. "You sold it without telling me?" I replied evenly. "It was never yours to begin with. You drove it, but it was mine, and that's over now." She stood there in shock, struggling for words. For the first time, she had no defense. That was when the cracks really started appearing. Her confident declaration about moving in with Tyler shifted from a solid plan to a risky gamble. And now that gamble was crumbling because Tyler hadn't secured a condo. It was all just talk. She had jumped into a future without ensuring there was a floor beneath her. Now, with no car and no apartment ready, reality hit her hard. The night she began packing wasn't the same as when she announced her plans. There were no excited vibes, just tears. She folded her clothes into boxes, wiping her eyes now and then, whispering to herself as if trying to make sense of it all. At one point, she looked at me, voice breaking. "So, you're really just letting me go like this?" I didn't raise my voice or throw her mistakes in her face. I simply replied, calm as ever, "Yes, exactly like this." She broke down crying, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel the urge to comfort her. I realized something crucial. She hadn't lost me when she packed her things. She lost me the moment she sat at that dinner table and made a decision for both of us without even pretending it was a discussion. By the time she finally wheeled her last suitcase out of the apartment, there was no dramatic goodbye or promises to stay friends, just silence. The same silence that first told me she had already left our relationship in her mind. After Emily left, I figured things might finally settle down. But people don't always take breakups quietly. A few mutual friends reached out, all sounding confused and cautious. "Hey man, Emily said you blindsided her. Did you kick her out with no warning?" At first, I ignored it, assuming they'd figure things out, but the more messages I got, the clearer it became. She was trying to control the narrative. She claimed I had abandoned her and made rash decisions, conveniently ignoring the fact that she announced she was moving in with another guy without discussing it with me. I could have gotten angry or publicly called her out, but instead, I stayed calm and let the facts speak for themselves. When a couple of close friends pressed for more details, I simply shared receipts, bank statements showing months of rent payments from my account, utility bills in my name, insurance records, and receipts for the car she had been driving around. When the time was right, I shared damning screenshots of her messages with Tyler, where their harmless friendship blurred into late-night flirtation, making it clear this wasn't purely about finances. I didn't add my thoughts. I just let the proof speak and allowed them to draw their own conclusions. It didn't take long for those same friends who had come to me with concerns to go quiet. A few later came back to apologize for assuming the worst. One even admitted, "Honestly, man, she made it sound like you went off the rails, but seeing all this, it's obvious she was playing everyone." Emily's version of events fell apart swiftly. She must have felt the walls closing in on her because she stopped trying to push her side of the story. No more texts, no social media posts suggesting she'd been wronged. Just silence. But this time, silence felt different. Initially, when she dropped her bombshell about moving in with Tyler, the silence signified the end of our relationship. Now, this silence meant everyone was finally seeing the truth. I didn't celebrate or gloat. If anything, I felt a strange relief wash over me. For years, I had managed everything: finances, responsibilities, maintaining the image of a solid relationship. When it all came crashing down, I expected chaos, but instead, I found peace in allowing the truth to stand on its own. Emily thought she could depict me as the villain, but she underestimated how much of her life had been propped up by me, and how much proof I had of that. By the time it was all said and done, she wasn't the heartbroken victim she had tried to portray. She was the one who walked away from stability, only to stumble over her own lies. And for the first time in ages, I felt like I didn't have to defend myself anymore. The truth was sufficient. News about Emily and Tyler faded eventually. I wasn't digging for information, but with so many mutual friends, you hear things whether you want to or not. I wasn't surprised to learn their big downtown condo plan had fallen apart almost immediately. Tyler hadn't actually signed anything. He was just talking big like he did at parties but never followed through on commitments. Emily gambled her stability on a fantasy. A couple of weeks passed, and she bounced between brief stays with friends while trying to pressure Tyler into finding them a place. But the reality was Tyler was fun at a bar, not reliable in life. 3 months later, I heard they had already split. He flat out told her he wasn't ready for anything serious, meaning he couldn't handle the financial burden she brought along. Just like that, Emily ended up back at her parents' house. Meanwhile, my life began to move forward in unexpected ways. I found a new place in another city, signed a lease that was entirely my own, and for once, I wasn't sharing expenses with someone who only took. The freedom of paying bills, knowing each cent went towards my future, felt liberating. No debt, no drain from someone else's needs, just a clean slate. Friends sometimes asked if I had heard from Emily directly, but I hadn't. She never reached out. Perhaps pride held her back, or maybe she realized there was nothing left to say. Either way, I didn't miss hearing her voice. In the quiet that followed, I finally understood how heavy things had been for so long. The financial strain was clear, but deeper than that was the emotional burden of always giving more, always covering for her, and always believing in a future she never intended to build with me. Looking back, I see her sitting at that dinner table and making her declaration wasn't really about Tyler or even the condo. It was about her trying to step out of our life without admitting how much she had been relying on me all along. She thought she was being clever and independent, maybe even bold. What she failed to see was that every step she took forward was only possible because I had built the foundation she was walking on. And when I stepped aside, her entire plan crumbled. There's a certain irony in that, but I don't feel bitter about it anymore. If anything, I'm thankful she made her choice because it pushed me to reclaim my own life. Now at 34, I'm living on my own terms, free of debt, and at peace. I don't know what Emily tells herself now or if she still tries to frame herself as the victim, but that doesn't matter anymore. What counts is that I'm no longer carrying her weight. When I reflect on that night, on the silence at the dinner table and her casual remark about moving in with Tyler, I realize that silence wasn't just the end of our relationship. It was the start of my freedom. Thanks for sticking around to the end. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more.